Bolivia's president-elect Luis Arce pledges a government based in national unity. In Florida, long lines form as part of early voting ahead of November's U.S. presidential election. The United Nations expressed deep concern over the humanitarian situation in Nagorno-Karabakh. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Gladys Quesada, joining you from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Stay with us. The MAS party candidate Luis Arce won the electoral race with 52.4% of the votes. According to the Bolivian polling organization CS Mori, Arce is followed by Carlos Mesa of the Comunidad Ciudadana Political Alliance, who has 31.5% of the votes, while on third place stands the Creemos party Fernando Camacho, with only 14.1% of the votes. And MAS candidate Luis Arce spoke after the preliminary results that show him as the winners of Bolivia's general elections.
It has been a Pacific day in which most of the Bolivian people have gone to the polls to cast their vote. On our behalf, our commitment of our organization and our grassroots level organizations to which we respond to, we have a commitment to carry forward our plan of action. And as we've been saying, we will govern for all of the Bolivians. We will build a government of national unity. We will build the unity of our country. Additionally, during the day, we are recovering the faith in the Bolivian people to be able to carry out all types of economic activities that benefit the small, medium, and large companies, and also the public sectors, and all of the families of Bolivia that for these last 11 months have been in total uncertainty. We are going to work, and we're going to reconduct our process of change with no hate, and learning and overcoming our mistakes as the Movimiento MAS.
And former Bolivian President Evo Morales said Monday that the MAS party won the elections and Luis Arce will become the next president of Bolivia.
Sisters and brothers of Bolivia in the world, Luis Arce will be our president. The movement towards socialism, political instrument for the sovereignty of the peoples, will have a majority in the two chambers of the Plurinational Legislative Assembly. We will recover the homeland. We will recover stability and progress. We will recover peace.
Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro Moro on Monday congratulated the victory of the presidential formula of the movement towards socialism MAS, made up of Luis Arce and David Choquehuanca in the Bolivian general elections. Great victory, the united and conscious Bolivian people defeated the coup against our brother, former President Evo Morales, with their votes. Congratulations to the President-elect Luis Arce, Vice President David Choquehuanca, and our South Indigenous leader Evo Morales, Maduro wrote on Twitter. Executive Vice President Delcy Rodriguez recalled that Morales was a victim of a fascist coup planned in Washington. According to the results, Luis Arce surpassed by more than 20% of points candidate Carlos Mesa of the Citizens Community Alliance, who received support by the 31.5% of voters in an outcome recognized by de facto President Yanin Áñez. The Cuban Public Registry of Clinical Trials registered another COVID-19 vaccine, whose process will include volunteers according to the official program. The second project, called Soberana 01A, will be carried out in parallel to the first trial, registered by the Finlay Institute of Vaccines, aimed to evaluate its safety according to the information posted on the institution's website. Included into the public registry on Saturday, another objective of the new research is to explore the possible impact in immunity of different formulations of the vaccine candidates Finlay FR1 and Finlay FR1A in different schemes. Similar to the first trial, the study is entering phase 1 and is randomly and double-blind. It includes 60 volunteers of both sexes, aged 19 to 59, and are divided into 3 groups. This Monday, financial institutions from Ecuador and Colombia are promoting reciprocal cooperation to facilitate collaboration in fields of common interest, such as monetary policy and the management of international reserves. This initiative was undertaken by Verónica Retola Jarrín, General Manager of the Central Bank of Ecuador, the BCE, and her counterpart of the Bank of the Republic of Colombia, Juan José Chavarría. The agreement seeks to reinforce the relationships of the national institution with the central banks of the region, according to a statement from the BCE. For the implementation of the agreement, both central banks will organize different activities, such as study and research programs, seminars, workshops, missions, internship, technical visit, video conferences, and other forms of cooperation that will provide strength to the bilateral cooperation. And archaeologists have discovered a giant cat figure etched into a slope at the UNESCO World Heritage Site in southern Peru. The geoglyph measures 37 meters from head to tail and forms part of the Nazca Lines, a collection of hundreds of mysterious artworks etched onto a plateau about 400 kilometers south of Lima. The cat joins an array of other zoomorphic drawings found across the region's landscape over the last century, including depictions of a hummingbird, a monkey, and a pelican. The style of the artwork suggests that it was created between 200 BC to 100 BC in the late Paracas period. And we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. This Monday, long lines form outside Miami Beach City Hall as Floridians participate in early voting ahead of November's U.S. presidential election. Meanwhile, both U.S. presidential candidates are rushing to gain voters' attention. However, their campaign activities and political programs does not seem to convince the audiences or to be up for the task. On this regard, our collaborator Abby Martin offers more details.
With your weekly election update for TeleSUR English. Well, the 2020 election in the U.S. just gets worse. After Trump recovered from COVID with socialized medical care only available to him, the Presidential Debates Commission announced the next debate would be virtual due to Trump's diagnosis. But he refused to do it virtually, and Biden wouldn't negotiate. So instead of another debate, this great democracy got dueling town halls at the same time on different networks. At Biden's, in the midst of a climate emergency, he rejected the Green New Deal and defended fracking. And in response to a national Black Lives Matter uprising, he refuted the popular demand to defund the police, actually comparing cops to school teachers who simply need new tools. He also had some interesting words about how he would solve the issue of police murder.
Teach people how to de-escalate circumstances. De-escalate. So instead of anybody coming at you and the first thing you do is shoot to kill, you shoot them in the leg.
Shoot them in the legs? Wow, That's the same thing Israeli snipers brag about doing to Palestinian protesters. Moving on to Trump's town hall, where he again gave tacit endorsement for QAnon, a conspiracy that alleges top Democratic operatives are running a satanic pedophile ring and that high-profile arrests are just around the corner. Amazingly, these people believe Donald Trump, the same guy who sexualized his own daughter as a child and has over 20 sexual assault allegations against him, is the moral savior here. But that wasn't the only bizarre highlight from Trump's town hall. He was also asked about his constant promotion of conspiracists and white nationalist accounts on Twitter.
Just this week, you retweeted to your 87 million followers a conspiracy theory that Joe Biden orchestrated to have SEAL Team 6, the Navy SEAL Team 6, killed to cover up the fake death of bin Laden. Now, why would you send a lie like that to your followers? You retweeted it.
That was a retweet. That was an opinion of somebody, and that was a retweet. I'll put it out there. People can decide for themselves.
Absolutely amazing. And whether or not he even believes this stuff, this just shows how much he thrives on total confusion and paranoia. Trump is the chaos president. Of course, the corporate media considered the most newsworthy thing about these two town halls were the ratings. Headlines focused on how many more people tuned into Biden's than Trump's, as if that's somehow a metric of who we should vote for. Because that's all this election and every election really is. One big reality show. The absurdity of U.S. elections is unique in the world, but perfectly exemplary of American culture, in that it's nothing but entertainment spectacle, hyped up as the end-all be-all event of politics, designed to demobilize and depoliticize the masses. And an absurd amount of money is spent on this reality show. 2012 was the first time in U.S. history that candidates spent over $1 billion campaigning. Just 8 years later, Trump and Biden are projected to spend around $11 billion on their campaigns. Where the hell is all this money coming from? Average citizens are capped at donating just $6,000 to candidates. Well, not if you're someone like Sheldon Adelson, casino mogul and GOP megadonor, who just poured $75 million this week alone into Trump's re-election campaign. Meanwhile, Biden has a super PAC funded by corporate lobbyists for the healthcare industry, weapons contractors, and banking. This all shows who this election is really for. Wall Street is now hedging their bets on a predictable Biden after cashing in on their fat corporate tax cut from Trump, which, by the way, reduced corporate tax from 35% all the way to 21%. And Biden isn't really planning to roll it back. He's already assured his rich donors that nothing will fundamentally change for them if he is elected. The untold tragedy here, guys, is that tens of millions of Americans desperately need that fundamental change. What should have been huge election news this week has been ignored by the corporate media and both campaigns. New data shows that just since May, 8 million more Americans have fallen below the poverty line. And according to the U.S. Census, about 10% of American adults, or 22 million, reported they didn't have enough to eat within the past week. 5 million more than before the pandemic. But neither Trump nor Biden is campaigning to these tens of millions of people with a plan that could help them. All that is offered to America's poor is the opportunity to vote for one of 2 millionaires every 4 years.
And this Monday, the number of confirmed coronavirus cases worldwide surpassed 40 million. Official sources report more than 1.1 million deaths across the globe. More than half the global caseload has come into the 3 hardest hit countries: the United States with more than 8.3 million infections, India with more than 7.5, and Brazil with over 5.2 million confirmed cases. In just the last 7 days, health authorities reported more than 2.5 million cases, the highest weekly number since the beginning of the pandemic. On Monday, Polish capital and other major cities in the country introduced partial confinement following a sharp rise in coronavirus cases. Government authorities have closed high schools in Warsaw and also other high-risk areas. Students are following online courses from home. The recent spike in COVID-19 cases has strained healthcare facilities to the breaking point. Also, roughly half of Poland was designated as a coronavirus red zone as of Saturday. To date, Poland has confirmed more than 183,000 COVID-19 cases and over 3,600 deaths.
We know the tools, the work platforms we used in the spring, and now the students know how it works. They are able to download and send their homework. It's a bit easier.
It's harder because you are always sitting in front of the computer and there's no one physically present to whom you can easily ask a question and who can explain something to you again. Here, online, you can also ask, but it's a completely different reality. It's harder because you are not used to staying in one place all day and staring at the screen. Personally, my eyes hurt a lot at the end of class.
Austrian Chancellor Sebastian Kurz on Monday said new federal restrictions will limit private gatherings to 6 people indoors and 12 people outdoors from Friday to try and slow the spread of the coronavirus. The government representative said that professional events such as football games and opera concerts will only be possible with assigned seats and mask wearing throughout the activities and without food and drink being served. There will be a maximum of 1,000 people indoors and 1,500 outdoors. Daily increases of confirmed infections have risen sharply in recent days in the country of about 9 million people, with spikes of the new infections reaching up to 1,750 per day, the highest numbers since the start of the pandemic.
Additionally, the federal government will act where the majority of infections occur, at private gatherings. Starting Friday midnight, indoor gatherings will be limited to 6 people, that is 6 adults. Outdoor gatherings will be limited to a maximum of 12 people. This applies basically everywhere, at the restaurant just as during the yoga session. The next month will become a red-white-red tour de force, simply because all of us in Austria and Europe are already tired of corona. But it will take months before we can really achieve a breakthrough with a vaccine and start a trend of reversal. The next month will be challenging.
And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. The United Nations has expressed deep concern over the humanitarian situation in Nagorno-Karabakh and requested protection for the lives of civilians in the conflict zones. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres condemned last Friday's events, which led to the death of civilians, including minors, in the Azerbaijani town of Gania. He also regretted that both Armenia and Azerbaijan have ignored repeated calls from the international community and urged both foreign ministers to watch constantly over the lives of civilians. Hostilities broke out last September 27, but the root of the conflict dates back to 1988, before the disintegration of the Soviet Union. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov on Monday said continued fighting between Azerbaijan and Armenia in Nagorno-Karabakh was unacceptable, and he called for a mechanism to enforce the ceasefire. Lavrov made the remarks after a meeting in Moscow with the Secretary General of the Council of Europe, Marija Pesinovic. A new truce announced on Saturday followed Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov's calls with his counterparts from Armenia and Azerbaijan, in which he strongly urged the abide by the Moscow deal. Despite the agreement, both sides have reported new attacks.
After the meeting in Moscow, our hopes were not fulfilled. Military actions continued. Attacks on civilian infrastructures, localities continued. It is unacceptable. For the ceasefire to work, a ceasefire control mechanism should be established, which we made sure after 2 treaties have been adopted and didn't help radically change the situation on the ground. We, in particular, our Defense Ministry is actively working on it, with colleagues from Azerbaijan and Armenia. I hope such a mechanism will be agreed as soon as possible.
And military leaders from Libya's warring sides met in Geneva on Monday in hopes for a UN-brokered breakthrough that could pave the way for a complete and permanent ceasefire in the conflict ridden in the North African country. The meeting opening Monday marked the fourth round of talks involving the Joint Military Commission under the watch of the head of the United Nations Support Mission for Libya, former U.S. State Department official Stephanie Williams. UN organizers said that Williams' mission hopes that the two delegations will reach a solution to all outstanding issues in order to achieve a complete and permanent ceasefire across Libya. Iraqi Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi on Monday met with French Prime Minister Jean Castex in Paris. A statement issued earlier by al-Kadhimi's media office said the meeting will focus on relationships between the two countries in terms of the economy, investments, security and healthcare. Following the meeting, 3 memorandums were signed between the two sides pertaining to transport, agriculture and education. Al-Kadhimi left Baghdad on Sunday for visits to France, Germany and the United Kingdom. On Monday, the Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Stayeh denounced the formalizing of diplomatic ties between Israel and Bahrain.
Yesterday, the Kingdom of Bahrain signed an agreement to establish full diplomatic relations with the occupation state. This is considered as a free price for the occupation, and it encourages the annexation of new territories, the establishment of new settlements, and it increases the challenges that the Palestinian people face for the liberation. Israel is systematically destroying the two-state solution. Israel does not want the two-state solution, nor any other one, but it wants the status quo to continue, and we are putting every effort for the sake of our state and for it to be recognized internationally.
With 44 new cases detected on Monday, the number of COVID-19 patients reached 5,077 in Syria, according to the Ministry of Health. About 1,528 patients have recovered from the disease, while 3 people died in the last few hours, totaling 248 deaths so far. In the last 4 weeks, Syria has reported no less than 40 infections daily with the novel coronavirus, which is why prevention measures are being intensified with insistent call to the population to respect them. Syria maintains borders closed and limits access to workplaces, commercial centers, service centers, and religious institutions. The United Nations Humanitarian Agency, together with Denmark, Germany and the European Union, will host a ministerial conference on the sharply deteriorating humanitarian situation in the Central Sahel, which covers Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger. People living in the border region between Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger are now at the epicenter of the conflict, poverty and climate change. More than 13 million people need humanitarian assistance. The number of people facing acute hunger was tripled over the past year to reach 7.4 million. And lockdowns and other COVID-19 prevention measures have pushed an additional 6 million people into extreme poverty. The conference aims to instill a more acute sense of urgency among policymakers about the situation in the Central Sahel, to raise money for humanitarian action and to encourage Sahelian and donor countries to offer specific longer-term policy commitments to build resilience and stave off humanitarian future needs. And with this, we have come to the end of this news brief. Continue with TeleSUR, connecting the Global South. Until the next time, thank you for watching.